Mr. Pete Alexander!
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Wow. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me. How many of you had a happy childhood? See a show of hands? Great. And how many of you had a less than happy childhood? Thank you. And to include everybody, how many of you were a child? All right, got to make sure there's no aliens here. My name is Pete Alexander. And would it be okay if I shared with you a story about how I overcame the traumatic effects of family dysfunction in order to lead a pretty great life? Yes? Thank you. Can you cue video, please? My parents, they used to describe our family from the illusion of a white picket fence. Think about that. Simple, maybe needing a little bit of work, but you'd never want to let the neighbors know that. What a crock of crap that was. This is more representative of my family's white picket fence. My family was a frickin' disaster. When I was 7 years old, my parents, they divorced for the second time. That's right, second time. My father, he had 5 marriages, 2 to my mom. And my mom, she had 4 marriages, 2 to my dad. 2 kids. My sister, the product of their first marriage, and me, the product of their second marriage. So think about that. My sister and I are 100% blood siblings, but from 2 different marriages. You know, think about Liz Taylor or the Kardashians. We hear about all that. Nothing compared to my parents. My parents wrote the book on family dysfunction, believe me. And, you know, a lot of us, you know, we grew up with some sort of family dysfunction in our lives, where our needs as children, they weren't consistently met by parents who were more self-absorbed with themselves, either through alcoholism, drug use, workaholics, overly controlling, verbally or physically abusive, or maybe your parents were physically or mentally deficient and you had to take care of them. And it was what it was. And, you know, we had to figure out how to deal with it, right? Maybe we had a friend as a kid that we could talk to. Maybe we had a pet to keep us company. Maybe we had a blanket, security blanket like Linus, remember from Peanuts? Maybe we had music that kept us company and made us feel better. Or maybe we had a stuffed animal as a friend. This one was mine. Teddy Bear. Teddy Bear was named by me when I was very small. I named him after the great Yankees catcher, Yogi Berra, because as a small kid, I saw Yogi interviewed, and he said this really interesting quote: "It ain't over till it's over." And I thought about that. What a neat quote. So I decided to name my bear Teddy Bear after basically that quote. But, you know, it ain't over till it's over, bear. It's kind of hard to say. And as you can see, he has been well loved because he's missing half of his fur from all the hugging. He is been stuffed a couple times. He's been stitched several times. And he is got a broken eye. And he's mine. He's actually older than I am. He belonged to my sister. And when I was born, he was put in my crib as a handy-down bear. And Teddy Bear and I have seen some very, very ugly family dysfunction over the years. Teddy was there when my mom met her third husband, Bob, an alcoholic truck driver who frequently beat my mom, several times unconscious, right in front of me. One time, I tried to stop it. And as Bob's fist was heading right for my face, my natural reaction was to block that punch, just like anybody would. What I didn't realize was that that arm that was trying to block that fist actually had Teddy Bear. And do you know that this bear came in between Bob's fist and my face? I got knocked down, but guess what? I did not get a black eye thanks to this bear. Yeah. No 10-year-old child should have to witness his mom being beaten. How many of you agree with me? Thank you. Ironically, my mom met Bob in the bar of a Disneyland hotel. You know, the happiest place on earth. Teddy was also around when my mom met her fourth husband, Bill, a lifetime alcoholic who loved to drink, and my mom had no problem keeping up with him, especially on weekends and holidays. Ugh, I hated the holidays, especially Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Why? Because the drinking was always at its peak, and the drama that followed was unbearable. Case in point, Christmas Eve, 1977. I'm 12 years old, and Bill and my mom have this big drunken fight that results in my mom deciding to try and pass out on the couch to sleep it off. And for some odd reason, I decide I'm going to interview my mom. And I get my little Radio Shack tape recorder out, and I interview my drunk mom on Christmas Eve, 5 minutes. Here's a snippet of that interview.
Okay, interview me, and that's it, okay?
All right.
When I pass out, I pass out.
When did you really start drinking?
I used to drink, and at the most, feeling under the truth, 2 drinks an evening.
Really?
Yes, and then I used to go on coffee.
Well,
But then when I met Bill,
why do you drink about 6 drinks a night?
so
In one, about maybe from 6 to 9 o'clock, you've already inhaled about 6 or 7 drinks.
okay, have you paid for them?
No. But why do you drink that much?
I'm asking you, did you pay for them?
No, but why do you drink that much?
Forget it. Forget it, Petey.
All right, then.
No 12-year-old child should take the responsibility of having to figure out why his mom drank so much. How many of you agree with me? Thank you. My teenage years, they didn't get any better. In fact, a lot of times worse. First of all, I disconnected from Teddy Bear. Why? Because it's not cool for a teenager to have a stuffed animal. How many of you guys remember not, having to give up a favorite toy because it wasn't cool anymore? Yeah. The drinking continued, the drama continued. I started getting angrier and angrier. I became a loner. I started lying because I was so embarrassed about what was going on at home. My mom thought that the anger must be around the raging hormones as a teenager. So thinking that she was going to do me a favor, one night she arranged to have a 46-year-old family friend seduce me when I was 13 years old. And you might think, wow, what a lucky guy. 13-year-old boy getting laid by a 46-year-old woman, you would think. But I was so confused after that event that it would be over 11 years before I could muster up enough confidence to be fully intimate with another woman. A 46-year-old woman should know better than to take advantage of a confused and frustrated 13-year-old boy. How many of you agree with me? Thank you. When I was 14, my anger getting higher and higher. In a drunken stupor, my stepfather Bill, he says to me, you know, if you're so angry, why don't you kill yourself? Why don't you go into the kitchen and get a knife and cut your wrists? Okay, I'll take that dare. And I went into the kitchen. I got out a carving knife, and I started carving into my left wrist. As I broke open my wrist and the blood started coming out, fortunately, I had the presence of mind to A, stop cutting, B, not stab Bill, because he was watching me as I was doing this, and I wanted to stab him, let me tell you, but I didn't. And C, I just said, I got to get out of this room. And so I went into my bedroom, and I started stabbing my pillow over and over and over again, over a dozen times, crying and screaming, because I was so angry. What the hell was this doing? A 14-year-old child should not be encouraged to commit suicide. How many of you agree with me? Thank you. I wish I could tell you that the dysfunction ended there. Sadly, it did not. And what I would call the nail in the coffin of my family dysfunction actually happened 9 years later. It was November 29th, 1988, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. I was 23 years old, and I was still living at home. I was working during the day and taking classes at night. Before I would leave for work, I'd always go in and check on Bill, because at this point, he was paralyzed from the belt down through a series of failed back surgeries. So he was actually bedridden and very depressed. I went into his room that morning to check on him, and he asks me, when I get home later that afternoon, to make sure to check on him. And I thought that was a really odd request, because it was part of my normal process. If I got home before my mom did, I would check on him automatically. So I went to work, thinking not much of it. Had a pretty good day. Came home, and as he asked, I went in to check on him. And I looked, and for the first second or two, I'm looking at his face and I go, something doesn't look right. And I look again, and finally my eyes start focusing on the surroundings. And Bill had managed to hang himself using an exercise rope for his arms. And he had strategized to make sure it was me who found him. Why? Because he knew that if my mom was the one to find him, that my mom would have gone insane. How much family dysfunction should one person have to bear? Ah! Needless to say, I was pretty screwed up after that. For a couple months, I was in a fog. I decided to start burying myself in work. I actually started going after every single award I possibly could, because I was going after that elusive approval of authority figures, bosses, executives. I almost never got that. And when I did, it was shallow and unsatisfactory. I also was dating the absolute wrong women for me. Women who preferred constant upsets to workable relationships. Basically, younger versions of my mom, because that's what I knew. I didn't like myself, but I wasn't going to kill myself because I knew firsthand what that does to the people left behind. So I had to figure something out, or else about 70 years of being miserable. So on November 7th, 1990, almost 2 years to the day that Bill committed suicide, I walked into my very first Adult Children of Alcoholics 12-step meeting. How many of you have heard of Adult Children of Alcoholics, or ACA? Thank you. And how many of you have not? Thank you. After the first 20, 30 minutes of that very first meeting, I was actually finally home. I was around other individuals who were dealing with their own white picket fence issues. They got me, I got them. And guess what? I got to reconnect with Teddy Barra through inner child work I started doing. And as I started attending meetings on a regular basis, an amazing thing happened. I started actually loving myself. Not for what I was accomplishing, but who I was as a person. And several months into the program, a special friend sent me a gift at work. I came in to the office and there was this lovely wrapped gift sitting on my desk. And when I opened the box, there was this lovely plush bear named Care Bear sitting in the box. And there was a card attached to it that I'm just going to read you a little excerpt of. While Teddy Barra helps you feel good about your past, I hope Care Bear will make you feel good about the present and future. Peter, you're a very special person, and I love being with you. You know, when I got this card for the first time and I read it, I cried. I cried because I knew that someone couldn't have done something as beautiful as this for me without me first loving myself. And about approximately 3 years after I received this wonderful card, that special friend became my wife. And we've been, thank you. We have been blessed with two wonderful children, Nicole and Chris, who I am immensely proud of. And interestingly, both Nicole and Chris have their own special stuffed animals. Nicole has Sam, a cat that she's had since she was 2 years old, and she keeps heavily guarded in her room. And Chris has Guago, it's kind of like a platypus duck thing that he has had for over half his life and goes almost everywhere with him. And let me tell you, when that duck dissipation, there's an all-points bulletin to find that duck. So important. And as for my mom, we've talked about it. A lot of water under the bridge. But we both survived, and I love her dearly. Best of all, she's been a wonderful grandmother to my kids. And that is by far and away the best gift that she could have ever given me. So, my mission, as you can tell, is to break the chain of family dysfunction. If you find yourself in a dysfunctional rut, go dig out that stuffed animal you had as a kid, or that security blanket, or maybe that music. If you don't have it anymore, find it at a thrift store. That's a wonderful place to get retro stuff that we had as a kid. Consider attending a 12-step meeting like ACA or another meeting that better suits your needs. And get support. Get support. Think about, if you were here yesterday, Greg Montana's breakout session, how you felt around that group of 3 or 4 people. Don't let family dysfunction limit your freedom, your appreciation of life, and your self-confidence to make things happen. Ideas from the heart. Unleash your heroic voice. Bam!
Give him a round of applause. Pete Alexander. Give it up for Teddy Vera.
Hi, I'm Pete Alexander. My idea from the heart is to break the chain of family dysfunction. I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to tell my story, but actually from an anonymous standpoint, because I was afraid that if people knew the real background about me, that maybe I'd be embarrassed. And through the work, through the journey of learning about my heart virtues and my power and strength from within and my message, my life message, I realized that I can't and I shouldn't hide behind a facade, and that I should just be me. And by telling my story, I'm hoping that I'll be able to touch people who can relate to the story and perhaps grow from it and be able to be inspired to take action. And my call to action is if you're in a dysfunctional rut, to get support. Get support. Don't let family dysfunction limit your freedom, your appreciation of life, and your self-confidence to make things happen. Ideas from the heart. Unleash your heroic voice. Bam!